So let's talk about another very common scenario in a very common opening. Another opening which practically doesn't require introduction unless you have issues with Italian. This is the Italian game, sometimes called Gioco Piano, and this is a really unambitious line, so you'll never catch me in this position. This position is black to play. What should black play? I agree that the d3 line is pretty boring. I find it pretty hard to win in these positions. Alright, so Aubameyang is going to have his day. Bishop b6. But the question is, why not bishop e3? Why not something else? Yeah, correct. He says we want the f4 square. It's actually not just the f4 square, it's also the d4 square. If you play bishop e3, I would say that this is almost like a blunder. This is pretty bad. In this particular pawn structure, where the position's blocked so we don't have a lot of maneuvering room for our pieces, we really need to use some particular squares. These squares, d4 and f4, are really important in this opening. For example, let's say we play bishop b6, the good move, and we continue the game in some kind of natural fashion, like with knight d2, and castling, and maybe h3, and h6, and c3. A typical way for black to continue, and also for white, is to play knight e7, knight g6. I know this is not like the theoretical most top line ever played, so just give me a break. I'm just trying to show an idea. So knight f1, and you want to land on f4. You might do it just by directly going there, and even if you get bad pawn structure, you get the bishop pair, and you have this pawn attacking on the king side. You could also go in for knight h5 in some positions. Although in this position, I don't think I would recommend knight h5. Obviously, there's going to be some counterplay with d4. That's the idea. Like, you might put your knight there and suddenly d4's coming in. But I'm just saying it's an idea. You can't even dream about playing knight f4 after playing this move bishop takes e3. Why not knight h5? Good question. Let's talk about this position again. If you play knight h5 here, I think you lose material. This bishop's protected, so I think we can just play the move knight e5. And after knight takes e5, queen takes h5, knight c4, pawn c4. White has doubled pawns, but I don't think they're weak enough to matter. And they also have a lot of activity on the king side. I think that white is up a pawn and loving it. So I would not play knight h5 here. There are some positions where you can play knight h5 successfully, however. I'm trying to... Let me see if I can recreate one position where you can do it. Let's talk about good chess. c3. Okay, how do we do it? Alright, so this, I'm just trying to show the tactical idea, so please forgive me if it's not precise, like top-notch theory. I think in this position you can play knight h5. I didn't check it out ahead of time, so that's my usual disclaimer. But after knight h5, knight e5, I believe you run into this problem. Queen h4, nice intermediate move. And the caveat is that you cannot play knight g3 because of queen or knight takes g3. It's a free piece. The pawn on f2 is pinned. If you play knight g6, they'll play queen takes f2 check, or maybe even bishop takes f2. So the position looks a little complicated actually, because knight g6, the pawn on f7 is pinned. But I think that black is better here. But this is the motif, right? the idea is that sometimes you can play knight h5, sack the e pawn, and then capture the f2 pawn, and it's just winning for black. So that's the idea. So coming back to this critical moment, after pawn takes, we don't have a lot of strategic leverage. Meanwhile, they have the luxurious choice of attacking on the f-file or playing d4. They can prepare it all they want. They have a long-term advantage. So this is an example where you don't want to trade pieces because it changes the pawn structure in an unfavorable way. We lose our strategic flexibility.